Welcome. This is a webinar about how to actually practically accomplish what Nelson Nash talks about in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker. On page 48, he throws out this wild comment. He says, if you're actively doing the Becoming Your Own Banker concept, at some point, premiums and income should match. And most people, if they've read this book, they know that infinite banking works, and they've convinced themselves by this point, like, okay, I get that. The natural end is that every dollar that we make should go through our own banking system. I mean, at the end of the day, don't we all want to optimize our cash? I mean, the money that we've been entrusted is the money that we need to put at work in the most profitable way possible, the most optimal way possible. And so using Nelson's analogy, we have to find a way to do that. Now, but what's standing in our way? Up to this point, there's not been a really practical step-by-step simple plan to follow. And so many of us are caught off guard, kind of like, okay, I get this. Well, maybe I just need to continue to open up new policies. Maybe that's just what I need to do. And so we kind of blindly open up new policies and we try to get to this point where income equals premium. And there's just not a practical way to do that. The second thing is we say, okay, well, maybe there's just not enough time. This is going to take a lot more work and effort than I have to give. And so we don't pursue it the way that we should. We get that first policy in place, but we don't continue to expand because we don't have a way to progress in that way. So at the end of the day, I want to kind of break this down. If you owned a bank, and I want to give you this picture. Let's say that you were the CEO of Wells Fargo, and you had all this money, and you said, you know what? I'm going to go into Regions Bank or Bank of America, and I'm going to ask to put money on deposit with them. What do you think the banker would do at Bank of America when the CEO of Wells Fargo comes in and says, I'd like to put money on deposit here? They'd be shaking their heads like, why? That makes no sense whatsoever. So I want to share that with you to say that we have to get out of this position of putting over here maybe this 10% or 5% of what we've made or the income that we have into our own banking system and be stacking up cash and putting money through someone else's system. So today we're going to break that down. In fact, if there's a way to become your own banker and to create this process in a simple way, shouldn't you know how to do it? That's the whole point. Now, I'm going to tell you, I didn't do this right for a long time. In fact, almost 8 years into this deal, I was still doing the same thing, kind of blindly moving down the path, and just recently started implementing a process for me and my family that I wanted to share with you today. Now, first of all, I want to break down one quick thing. If you are a bank, then you need to think, first of all, about assets and liabilities. First of all, you have to think like a bank in order for this process to work. And so let me just break that down for you. If you are putting a money on deposit at a bank, what does a bank actually call that? Do they call that an asset or a liability? Well, you may be shocked that the bank actually calls this a liability. Why is that? It's because now, don't they owe you that money back? And don't they owe you interest for the use of that money? They do. So they call it a liability. Now, how do they actually turn it into an asset? They have to put it to work. They have to have a borrower. Someone is going to borrow that money from them. Heck, it may be you. And they're going to then, that borrower is going to turn around and they're going to send back interest payments, aren't they? Now that becomes an asset to the bank because now they've received interest income. They're going to then send out interest back to you. Now 0.01 versus maybe the average 5.2, there's a little disparity there. In fact, that's a significant disparity that the bank is making on your money. Now, if you consider loans to be a liability to you, that's because you're thinking like a consumer, not a banker. We have to start thinking about loans in the way that they're intended, and that is as an asset to us if they're done properly. Now, here's going to be the process in this case study. First of all, you have to identify what your budget is, okay? I'm not going to give you the specific numbers for my family, but I'm just going to give you a for instance of what a family might have in terms of a general budget. A general budget for a family might be $12,000 a month in expenses. So for purposes of today, I'm going to use $12,000 for that, and I'm going to use $20,000 for income. Your numbers could be varying differently from that. It doesn't matter. I just want to give you something to go off of. If you don't know your budget, none of this works anyway. In fact, Nelson talks about in the Parkinson's law, if you consistently spend more or at what you make, you're not actually building equity in anything. So none of this is going to work. Know your budget and be able to identify that. Every month, we're going to take a loan to pay the monthly expenses out of our policy. Okay, so that's the next step. And the third is that because we've got all of our expenses paid out of our loan from our policy, now we have the freedom to take any and all income that we receive, whether it's lump sums, commissions, salary, whatever it might be, and shove it back into the policy as a loan repayment. So that's going to be the process. I'm just going to kind of illustrate this for you. So I had a policy about 8 months ago that had $80,000 of gross cash value. Now, I had actually taken a loan against that policy, and I had $40,000 for a previous investment, okay? So that's the existing loan. And so I had an available cash value of $40,000. Now again, I wanted to walk you through this. It dawned on me that why don't I run everything through this policy so that I can consistently expand my system over time? So if you imagine for me, if you take a loan for $12,000, again, you're going to run that $12,000 loan into the checking account and then on to pay expenses. Now, as a business owner, this is pretty huge actually. If you know every single month what you're going to have coming in, that kind of takes the pressure off. You don't have to wonder about what timing everything's going to come in and when the bills are due and so on. You have the money and you turn around and you send every dollar you make in terms of income back. Again, for the purpose of this, I'm just using an arbitrary $20,000 income per month, and that money is going to go back to the policy as a loan repayment. Okay, so what has effectively happened in this process? There was a point where the loan actually increased to $52,000 when we took the original $12,000 out as a loan, and the cash available dropped. So we're going to take 12 out of 40, and we're going to say there was 28,000 available. So I want you to envision this. It's like the line lowered. But when we paid back the $20,000 into the policy, what happened? We moved the line again. The line went back up and actually went higher than what it started by $8,000, didn't it? So we went from $40,000 as the original loan to $32,000 because there's $8,000 more going back into the loan repayment. And then we add the $8,000 to the original 40. Now we have $48,000 available cash for us. So we've moved the needle up in that particular month. You go and you do it again for the second month. So just do this times 2. Let's say this was February, this is March. You do that again. Again, the movement of the line is going to move up again by about $8,000 in this scenario. And so we're going to be down to $24,000 in the loan. And we're going to have $56,000 cash available. As you can see, the line is going to move up or down according to your cash flows. So let's say that your income wasn't $20,000 that month. Let's say it was actually only $6,000, because as entrepreneurs, business owners, we don't know what our income is going to be every single month. It varies. But you may have already taken out the $12,000 loan to live off of for your expenses. This line would move down in that particular month before it would move back up. If, let's say, you had a month where you had 30,000 of income and you were able to make up the difference. Again, the numbers are arbitrary, but you can input your number. You know what your cash flows look like, and you know how this would work. But at some point, what this is doing is it's creating a discipline that you don't have to wonder what to do with cash that's sitting around. If it's in your bank account, you send it back to the loan repayment so that it continues to build equity in your policy. Now, here's where the magic comes in terms of expanding your system to create a point where income can equal premium. At some point, when this line moves up, and let's just say that you set an arbitrary point like this, and you say, man, once I almost fill up this current policy, I've got to expand. Now, you can project and say, well, do I have taxes due? Do I have another premium on another policy due? And you can kind of project and see, okay, am I going to need that for something else? But if not, this is the perfect time that you've proven to yourself that now I can take, and let's just say I take a loan out for $20,000 in that case, and I say, okay, I'm going to do a one-time premium for policy number 2. And you can continue that process because then you've lowered that loan, increased that loan and lowered the cash available. And you're going to keep adding equity back to this mother policy to continue to feed your future policies as time permits and as opportunity presents itself. And then going forward, you can be using policies number 2, 3, 4, however many it takes to invest in other things. Maybe you're going to buy real estate with it. Maybe you're going to invest in your business through it. Maybe you're going to do some lending that's going to create other passive incomes that will continue to allow you to expand your system. So hopefully you can see this is the inverse of the mortgage accelerator program, or I mentioned in the podcast the home equity maximizer account. They've called it a number of different things. This is the inverse of that because you're not using a bank who uses a home equity line. You're using your bank, your policy, or your system of policies to accomplish the same thing, but you're now in control. You're not under somebody else's terms. And you're able to be freed up to expand your system as you want to. I hope this has been helpful. If you have questions, put in the comments below. Let us know if we can help you in any way, shape, or form. Hope you have a great day.